Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast. Hey, what's up? Phone call in the mall. Word. That's literally the first ever quote unquote rap. I don't know if I can count that as a rap that I ever created. And I don't know why, but I wanted to share that with you here today. And I think the reason I shared that just because I'm feeling really, really good. We just got done talking to Jonathan Ortiz, whose background is in media and in marketing. And he's used that to not only get into data science, but to really use that to help differentiate him amongst some of the others that are doing the same type of work and really elevate his impact to his organization and also to the world more broadly. I'll get to that, or actually I'll let Jonathan get to that in his conversation. I want to give you a heads up. This conversation, there's nothing held back, and we really, really dive into specifics. You're going to get specific resources to leverage. You're going to get specific step-by-step instructions on how to build experiences and build projects that will demonstrate that you have the skills and experience for the job. In fact, I actually was considering moving this episode up much further in the order of things for Empjoyment Podcast. But you know what? I think this is exactly the right time. If you've been listening to Empjoyment, whether this is your first episode or not, you should get that we're about action. And I feel that I'm hopeful that you're primed and ready to take action because this is a blueprint to success. In fact, Jonathan was so passionate about this that we went well over our allotted time for the conversation and just kept delivering value. And for that, Jonathan, I really appreciate you and I salute you and, just really just appreciate your dedication to making sure that people have what they need to move forward. So talking about that, I'm going to get out of the way here and give you a chance to listen to this podcast. And just want to invite you, if you're one of those people who is ready to take action, who is ready to move past thinking about getting a job in tech and actually start taking the steps that are going to get you there faster by coming up with a roadmap, by understanding what are some of the challenges and some of the mental barriers that you're putting in front of yourself and then how to overcome all of those things. I invite you to come to a powerful coaching session with me, which you can get access through the Empjoyment website at empjoyment.com/coaching. This is not for everyone. I know that it's not for everyone, but at the same time, for those of you who it is for, I want to make sure that I am making myself available for you while I can, because Empjoyment is always going to continue growing and there's not always going to be the opportunity that I'll have to be able to work with people one-on-one. But right now I have this very special time where I can, and I want to use that to help you move forward in your journey. So what I'm doing is I am offering a complimentary coaching session, and to have a chance for that session, you need to go to empjoyment.com/coaching and apply. I'm really big on action and want to make sure you have the chance to think through what you need to be able to move forward so that when you come and have a discussion with me, you're ready to get to work and you're ready to make a significant impact in your life. Because that's what we're able to do through personalized one-on-one coaching. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited to coach deeply and powerfully and help remove your challenges that are keeping you from the job of your dreams and the life that you want once and for all. So find us over at empjoyment.com/coaching. And here's the episode with Jonathan Ortiz. Enjoy. Hey there, Empjoyees, and welcome to the Empjoyment Podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you find enjoyment through employment. I'm excited because today I'm sitting here with Jonathan Ortiz. Jonathan, would you like to say a quick hello to Empjoyees?
Hi, everybody.
All right. Look at this. This is I'm ready, loving this excitement and feeling that you're bringing to the table. So, Jonathan, would you mind letting us know a little bit more about you and sharing more about you both professionally and personally? In fact, can you tell us about your life, love, work, and passion?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So like Nemo said, my name is Jonathan Ortiz. I'm a data scientist and a knowledge engineer at an Austin startup called data.world. I got into data science through this program at the University of Texas. UT Austin has a data analytics and big data program. And then, but prior to that, I had a lot of experience in media and in marketing and consulting. And so I made a pretty big career transition there. And part of it was through that program at UT. Part of it was also a lot of self-study on my part. And so, but, talking about media, marketing, and consulting, I was most recently a director at Scratch, which is a division of Viacom, and they drive innovation at Viacom just by channeling a lot of the power of their brands and a lot of the research and insights that are powering their brands like BET and MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, yada, yada. So I have a pretty big marketing background, pretty big media background, business analytics background. And I think that was actually a lot of, there were actually a lot of transferable skills getting into data science. Kind of personally, I don't know. I love the outdoors. I happen to do a triathlon here or there, so I spend a lot of time focusing on that. And I am a home brewer as well, so I like beer.
Oh, that is really, really fun there. Like the home brewery just like kind of just snuck that in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could easily spend an entire hour just talking about that, and so let's just kind of cut it right there, and just we can talk about yeast strains and hop varietals another time.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, and I'm sure that translates somewhere as well into your journey. So, like, I'm really excited here because, like, you're doing data science and you're a knowledge engineer, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about like what that actually means and what that entails. But I think it's really quite interesting to like how it might seem like media and marketing is very far away from what you're doing right now, and yet at the same time you're like, I found some easily translatable skills, and I think that's a really, really exciting thing to know we're going to be able to explore in today's conversation. To kind of help us get like set up for the conversation, I'd like to start out here with just some kind of success quote or mantra or motto that you use to kind of keep yourself pointed in the direction that you want. So would you mind sharing with us some kind of a success mantra that you've been using to move forward?
Yeah. So when you said success quote, I was thinking about this, and like my mind first goes to the question of like, what is success? Like to me, like how do I define, or how I define success probably has a lot to do with how I answer this question, And so for me, being successful isn't like about status. It's not about money. It's not about possessions. It's more simply like, did I do what I said I was going to do? And so, you made a commitment to something. It could be anything. It can be like, will I get out of bed and spend some time getting to know the people in my life better? Which is honestly like, that's kind of a difficult prospect for some people in this world. But like, my point is not that. My point is like, you make a commitment to do, and it could be anything. It could be large or small. And do you follow through with it or not? And if you did, that's success. And if you didn't, that's not success. So like, as I'm saying all this, it's like kind of funny. You posed that question to me earlier, and I was like, the only thing that comes to mind right now is I have to go back to Yoda at the Dagobah system in Empire Strikes Back. And he tells Luke, do or do not. There is no try. And that is my success quote. Do or do not. There is no try. That, like, for me, it really can't get any simpler than that, because it's all about getting rid of all the excuses. It's all about getting out of your own head. And I found a lot of time when I was making this career transition, my biggest enemy, my biggest obstacle was my own head, like my own history, my own experience, and learning something new when you're, several years into one career and you want to change into another, can be frightening. And a lot of times it's like getting out of your own head and just plain and simple, do or do not, So that I think is my success quote.
Ooh, do or do not. Yoda is still providing like really great insight out here. But I think like I'm really happy you brought up this, like the definition of success there, Jonathan, because I think that is something. I actually just got off a call talking to someone around a very similar topic here, especially when we, I think it's just like human nature to try and find success kind of like outside of ourselves, or like based on what other people are doing or like the actions others are taking. And there's something here that feels very like appropriate in terms of saying like, for you, what is that? And making sure that you're taking the time to define what success is for you and making a commitment toward that, and then actually following through on that, regardless of how large or small. Am I getting that right there? Is that like the sentiment that you have behind that?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, because that to me is what success is all about. And so it's about just simply, are you achieving that which you said that you would? And so like for me, success is like being honest with what you're committing to and what you're promising to yourself that you're going to do, and then going forward and actually achieving that. That's success. And so, when you're trying to do this, and like, the whole theme here is changing careers or changing jobs or changing into a different industry. You don't have time to like second guess yourself. You can't risk having any doubts. You're either in or you're out, so you got to believe, you got to know. You can't say, oh, okay, I'm going to go give it a try. That's not good enough. You either do or you do not. There is no try. And so that's what really, I think, is my mantra.
Awesome. So we're going to take that right there, and we're just going to like jump into this and not second guess ourselves along the way here. And I think, it's really cool that you are at this point right now in your life. I know that like that's not how things necessarily started out from you, even just from that little teaser you gave us a little bit earlier. So would you mind taking us to the beginning of what you consider to be your professional journey and walk us through the steps and the things that happened that got you to this point?
Sure. Well, I could tell you about my first job. And really like my full professional journey. But I think I'll probably not go all the way back there. I think I'll probably start to right before I made my jump to data science. And like I said, I was working at Viacom in New York, big media company. And I was a director at this division called Scratch. And just to kind of quickly summarize my job there, it was like, it's kind of like a project manager job at an agency. Like I was just leading projects end to end, pushing things towards the end zone. And a lot of what I did there did require some kind of lightweight analysis, but I guess I'll go into that a little bit. We had to have some basis for what we were recommending. So I had to have some kind of lightweight analysis ability, and I really had to stress the research and insights piece of what we were doing, because we had to have some sort of support for what it was that we were recommending, or, whether it was a new show idea or whether it was a marketing campaign or whatever. But my specific role in all that really mostly had to do with like receiving the research and then helping make sense of it and distilling it down to a few data points or statistics that we would use as the support for what we were making. And so, for example, like I'm totally making this up, but like something like 80% of millennials would rather die than be in an awkward situation with someone they like. Like, I don't know. That's completely fabricated, and I don't want you to use that as like a real statistic, but stuff like that. And that was about it for my piece of the research and insights. I would take the responses of surveys that were done by research teams, and I would essentially make sense of them, and I would see kind of noteworthy statistics, and that could be used as the basis for insights, which could then fuel strategy. And so that's basically my job. And I came from a quantitative background, though. So I found myself wanting to get more into the weeds with the research team than picking up from where they left off. Like I had questions that I wanted to answer, and I wanted the skills in order to answer them. And so I began to get pretty inspired because like at Viacom, at the time that I was there, they were investing heavily in like data and in data pipelining and in data science. And they're actually really pretty sophisticated at this point. I want to say like they're pulling from all sorts of data streams to predict things like if you're watching Spike, which is a TV channel, cable television channel, and you happen to see a Burger King ad on Spike, like they can tell whether or not you happen to walk into a Burger King store within 2 weeks of seeing that ad. It's, so stuff like that. Now that's like not meant to scare anybody. Like there's no actual Big Brother type of surveillance happening here. They're not actually able to tell if everyone in the country who saw that ad actually went into the Burger King. It's predictive and it's extrapolated from smaller sample sizes. But that I thought was pretty amazing stuff because they basically figured out attribution models for all the ads that they were selling. And so now they're selling pay for performance advertisement, which is something that you don't typically get on when you're buying television. You typically get that for digital. So I just thought that was amazing. And I thought that's what I want. I want to do that. And so that I think was probably the impetus for my getting interested in it. And it turned out that I didn't end up getting into data science with my current company at the time, Viacom. I ended up moving on. And then, as I said in my intro, I did a data analytics program at UT at Austin, which took about a year. So there was a little bit of time while I was studying in the Austin program, in the UT Austin program, while I was still at Viacom, and then a little bit of time when I didn't have a job. And then there was a little bit of time where I was still finishing up that program when I got the job that I currently do have. So that's kind of my story. And it took a lot of guts, I guess. You have all of this experience in marketing and in really the main media for your for marketing work is like face-to-face meetings, phone calls, emails, PowerPoint presentations, and those kinds of things. Like you're really not knee deep in the weeds. And so it took a lot of fortitude to make that jump, but I did, and I don't regret it at all. I'm very happy with where I am, and I'm happy to no longer be like a project manager and instead be a producer of some of those fundamental insights that might be powering work that others are then doing. So that's kind of my story.
Wow, it's exciting, and I think it's really cool that you were able to dive deeper into your own experience and say like, I'm looking for more of this. I want to get more more down in into the actual research and how it's all coming together. And it was also really interesting because it seems that you were looking at it and you're like, this is where this organization is headed. This is where the future is headed. And like, I want to be a part of this in my own way, and it's almost like. Yeah,
that's a good point too. Mm-hmm. That's a good point too, because it wasn't lost on me at that time. It was like, what are the sexiest jobs of the day? And data scientist was right up there. And my wife is an actuary, and I think actuary is consistently rated as like one of the highest rated jobs that you could possibly have. But I think that you were an actuary too, and you made a little bit of a transition too. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, so data science was like rated as one of the highest jobs. And I think that we all know that we're awash in data, and data goes into informing every decision that we're making, whether we know it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not. But like things from waking up and, what kind of clothes am I going to wear? The data streams being pulled from weather, to things like, what am I going to watch on Netflix? I'm going to use these ratings. Just like data is really informing every decision that we're making today. And it's especially informing every decision that a company is making. Companies are awash in data, and I don't think that it's going anywhere. Like we're only going to produce more of it. It's only going to become more. I think it's expanding at a combinatorial rate at this point. So it's like it was a field that I thought would be lucrative in the future. That's for sure.
I think that's awesome. And like you had mentioned something about like fortitude, and you kind of laughed that over. And maybe that's the there is no try aspect of it there. But I would love if you could just like explain or expand a bit on like what you felt. What you felt like needed that fortitude, and then like how you made a decision to actually make that transition.
Right. Because at the time, I knew that I was going to be moving to Austin, and that was really the main reason why I couldn't stay at Viacom, I think. And Viacom has no offices here, and it wasn't going to be realistic to continue working at Viacom while I was based here. So when I first moved here, I was really debating whether or not this was just going to be a passing fancy, or was I really going to commit to it? And because, you're faced with reality at the same time. Like you have bills to pay, you have to pay the rent, you have to feed yourself. Like there are all these things, these real things that everybody has to be mindful of. And so when you just say, I'm going to completely switch, transition into a new field, like that can be really scary because you have the reality that's facing you. But you have to stay committed. And like it got to a point where I was even applying for jobs that looked very similar to the job that I had, which is like kind of multi-channel marketing and like kind of leveraging research and insights and data streams in a certain way, but a marketing position, pushing projects through, project managing things from start to finish, whether it be an email campaign or a digital buy or something. And I even went to interviews, like when I moved to Austin. HomeAway is a big company here. HomeAway just bought by Expedia, and they're right across the street from the headquarters of Whole Foods here in Austin. And I went and I was applying and I interviewed, and I was even in final round interviews at HomeAway for a job that sounded exactly like what I had just done at Viacom, which was the stuff that I had told myself that I didn't want to do anymore. And so, you've got like even it's really hard to tell yourself when you've even got an opportunity right in your hand and nothing else on the horizon. And it's for something that is very familiar. So it's work that that you can do, to say no to it and to commit and to recommit yourself to this idea that you're going to be better off if you continue down this path of doing this thing that's new. And I really don't know how to explain it other than to say that I'm just very glad that I stayed the course. I'm very glad that I had that fortitude and that I was able to just to stick with it.
Wow, Jonathan, I think like that's really, I appreciate you like expanding on that there, because like I'm actually sitting there and I'm like I'm thinking to myself, what would I do if I got to a place where like there's a lot of other aspects of my life that are changing, and a lot of times people are like, play it safe. If you're going to change, like either there's like 3 different elements or different elements that you can change. You don't want to change too many variables at the same time, and yet like you looked at that and you had you're like, this is what I know I want to do, even though there are other opportunities where I can just change just the location variable. You're like, I really need to make the full switch. So kudos to you on that, because that is like, it compounds the difficulty of the situation when it's not like you're even staying in a comfortable environment. You're changing everything up at that point.
Yeah, they say like they say don't change your city, your location, your job, or your relationships, your romantic relationships at the same time. Like you should, if you're going to change one of those, only change one. But my wife and I, we had just gotten engaged. So we were planning a wedding. We were moving to a new city. I was changing jobs. It was chaos, but I'm much better. I'm much better having gone through it all.
That's like it. It's funny because like I'm sitting to you and I'm talking to you. My wife and I just recently moved to Singapore, and I was going through a very similar thing where I'm like, all right, I can probably try and keep doing what I'm doing in a very literal sense, my current organization. But it's like, I feel like these opportunities give you a chance to say, what kind of a life do I want? And let me just design that life and then go live it. It's like, you almost don't have to worry about the inertia and the momentum that's keeping you in the same place or keeping you doing what you've been doing, because things are going to be different. In fact, that's what I said. I was like, things are going to be different in Singapore. Why not make it just a little bit more different and just do my own thing and follow the joy that I want to bring to other people?
That's exactly right. I mean, I think that echoes true for me. Like the idea of designing what you want and doing it, that's not how I typically think of it, but that's exactly right. Like it's a proactive outlook. It's like here's what I want, and I'm going to actually create it. Like I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell everybody that I'm going to do it, and that's going to put my butt on the line so that I actually have to follow through. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to actually create it. That's what's going to happen. The trick is following through, of course, but that's a very good way of putting it. That I think is what I did too.
Awesome. So let's look at this here. Like, I think we're all feeling happy that you're able to make this change and transition here. And you talked us through some of the things that were going on through your mind, but I'd love to dive in a little bit onto one specific instance where you faced a roadblock or a challenge in your professional career. Maybe it was with your transition. Maybe it was at your new role and actually working as a data scientist. Tell us a little bit here about tell us about a specific challenge that you faced and the steps you took to overcome
it. Can I just say every day I have one? I think when you are switching up industry or you're switching up your job entirely, it can be very tricky, right? Like it can be a very difficult thing to do from the perspective of you don't have a basis of understanding sometimes to even approach certain problems. So coming from media and going into tech, there's all sorts of, new jargon that you have to understand, and you have to understand processes, like the way that a web development company goes about business and goes about making money and making its product and providing that product to people is very different than the way that a media company does. And so just understanding that at a fundamental level is a challenge. And let alone like your specific job, let alone your specific role within that company. So these are all things that I guess the biggest challenge, if I could sum it all up, the biggest roadblock on my journey was learning all of that as quickly as possible so that they would want to hire me full time. And that I think I'm kind of getting into a question that you wanted a specific question that you wanted to ask me. I guess I'm kind of going to give it away a little bit, but something about like how can you show that you're capable with little experience or something like that. And basically the way that I went about it was getting an internship with this company. And so at this internship, I knew my job was, maybe I'm not saying it the best way, but like impress them, like show them that you deserve a full-time position here. And the best way to do that is to work your butt off, surely. But I mean, you can't just work all the time, right? So you have to work smartly. You have to learn very, very quickly. You have to pick things up very quickly and regurgitate it. Show them that you know it. Show them that you can speak the language if there's a lot of jargon. Show them that you understand processes at a very good level by elevating things and fitting them into, like elevating new things that could be good for the company and fitting them into that process and saying, you know what, I'm actually going to go and I'm actually going to make that happen. Just being proactive, taking ownership and all those kind of things. So my roadblock was learning. My roadblock was during this internship that I had, which lasted the summer of 2016. I'm pretty new, honestly, to data science. I've been in my job since June of 2016 when I got my internship, and then they hired me full time in September of 2016. So not even a full year full time with the company. And it's just the amount that I've had to learn has been enormous. Things that, people who are in this industry and have been, who are at my experience level, my total experience level, just for years and years, they have a much better, just basis of understanding, much better foundation. So the way that I think I went about that is by leveraging what I have always been good at, and skills that I had at previous jobs, skills that I had developed at previous jobs. So things like, taking ownership and showing good work ethic are pretty obvious, but also realizing that like there were opportunities for me to use things that, people who are technical aren't necessarily always good at. So I realized pretty quickly that I could be external at our company, and as a startup, as a company that isn't like a household name in any sense, although everybody should know it, data.world. You should all go there. You should all have data.world profiles. You should sign up for data.world right away if you're anybody who's interested in data at all. But that being said, you should know where you're coming from. You should know the skills that you've developed in your previous experience and try to use them. And one of the things that I got really good at was, having meetings, talking to people, business development, going out, doing presentations, speaking to rooms of people, storytelling, and all of those kinds of things. Those are things that are actually really important for a data scientist that you don't typically learn if you're going through a computational program. If you're going through like an applied statistics program or a code boot camp or something like that, it's often not really, not in any place that I've ever seen, prioritized. But data science is storytelling. Like you are trying to uncover some sort of inherent relationships, and then you need to show people what those relationships are, why they matter, and how ultimately, by implementing a model that's based in these relationships, their company is going to be better. They're going to make more profit. They're going to sell more units. They're going to save more money. Yada yada. Like, that is storytelling. You need to be able to present that in an effective manner. And I think by demonstrating those kinds of qualities and skills that I had gained elsewhere, it definitely helped me. Because then I wasn't just like some guy who was beating his head against the table. I was a guy who was maybe beating his head against the table, trying to learn things as quickly as he could, but he was also really good at these other things. So I guess that's how I worked my way out of that one.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as you're talking about this, especially this last part here, we're talking about like the 3 things you shouldn't change all at once. And it's almost like maybe a part of you changed like some of the role there, but you took the skill sets. You didn't like throw away all your skill sets and say, okay, this is no longer going to be applicable. That's gone. Like, who cares what the role is called? If you know how to tell stories, if you can still gain those insights, if you can put your mindset into where like your potential stakeholder is, like, you know, where their mind is when they're looking at this data, I think that's only going to help like fuel you and make you a better data scientist in the process. Am I on the right page there? Is that in line with what you're saying?
Yeah, that's totally what I'm saying. That's you know, I'll read either articles, blog posts, or Jupyter notebooks, or you know, script files and repositories and all sorts of stuff that's prepared by these very capable data professionals. And a lot of times they spend so much time just focusing on, okay, so first I used you know, this data frame, and I had to clean it with these methods, and then I used principal component analysis, and then I used, you know, recursive feature elimination, or I used XGBoost algorithm, or yada yada. And it's just like, maybe that's important for somebody who wants to learn how to do data science, and maybe you want to make a name for somebody who's sharing their experience to up and coming data scientists so that they can learn the data science process. But if you're just trying to talk about what you did, that's kind of a boring thing to read, to be completely honest. Like, you don't want to talk about all of these esoteric terms that, you know, like a layman doesn't understand. They want to know, what did you find out? They want it in simple terms. They want to know, what did you find out, and why is it applicable to me, and what can I do with it? Those are and I hate to like kind of like dumb it down like that, but it's oftentimes very difficult for a data scientist to answer those questions. They want to talk about the whole process that they went through, not you know, reduce it down to those kinds of terms. And ultimately, that's what's most important. That's, I think, the breakthrough. The breakthrough is like, that's what's most important. That's what everybody needs to take away. And that's all anybody is going to, like a layman or somebody who wants to read your article, or, you know, who's just uncovering this kind of thing. That's what's important. And, yeah, so having that basis, that foundation of understanding from a marketing background, like how to tell a story and how to make a point in a coherent and logical and concise way that is valuable, where somebody who's reading this is actually taking this and consuming it, and they are taking value away from what you're saying. That is that's not something that's like second nature to a lot of data scientists.
Cool. So like I think that's a really great place to like take that there, because it's like employees, you can see how your past experience might give you an opportunity to do, yes, I can be technically great, but I can also take it that next level. And then the next level is like being able to kind of fill that gap from start to finish there. And, you know, this sounds really, really awesome. Like, I'm happy to hear that, like, you know, you found a way to go through those learnings there, Jonathan. And I'd be kind of curious to stay on the path of like things that have gone well for you. In fact, I'd love to explore something that you've done at work that has brought you great joy. So would you mind sharing with us your proudest professional moment?
I think my proudest professional moment was the culmination of my grant fellowship that I had. So I had this internship, which was sponsored by the National Science Foundation South Big Data Hub. This was a grant. It was called Data Start, 2016 Data Start program. And through this grant fellowship, which I had to apply for, they essentially paid my company to sponsor me for the summer. So it's kind of like a pretty cool, and that's one of the best ways I think that people can get a job in data science is through internships, and particularly through fellowships like this, because it kind of makes it a no-brainer for the company. Like if there's a foundation that is providing grant money to a company in order to take on a talented intern for the summer, like that's a no-brainer for that company. So that's like an easy foot in the door. The culmination of my work was to present this project that I took on in partnership with the U.S. Census Bureau. And essentially what I did was take the American Community Survey, which is part of the decennial census program. But the decennial census, they only do it once every 10 years. Well, they do the American Community Survey every year, but it's not a full enumeration of the entire country. It's something like 3 million households, which is still a lot. That's 1% of the population, but it's still a ton of people. So it's actually the biggest household survey performed every year. And so I took that survey and made it more accessible and easier to combine with other data sets on data.world, which is the platform that my company builds, and also other data sets on what's called the Semantic Web. And the Semantic Web is essentially a different form for hosting and publishing data. A lot of times people host data in things ranging from PDFs and CSVs and Excel documents, all the way up to something that's called RDF, or Resource Description Framework. And that's the basis of the Semantic Web. And essentially what it does is it applies the same architecture that you have that's running the World Wide Web, but instead of applying it to documents that are linked together, like I can read this article and it's linking to this other article, and that article is linking to another article, and from articles and pages and things like that, you're actually linking data resources. So like this person, this household, links to that person in that household, and so on and so forth. So it's applying that linked architecture to data resources. And it's something that was talked about a lot, like maybe a decade ago, by Tim Berners-Lee, who is I guess not the founder, but the inventor of the World Wide Web. And he's really big on semantic web. And it's something that's been talked about a lot since then. I think he first started talking about it in like maybe 2005. Anyways, it's something that has been kind of growing steadily. There are a lot of providers of linked data in this thing called the Semantic Web that's using the same architecture to link data resources. And so I provided the census as a piece of that, because I want people to use it. I want people to find it and to use it. And what's really cool about it is it's not just really cool that, it's all connected and you make this really neat web of data. There are actually some real benefits to doing it this way. And the most important one is that it takes very difficult to describe relationships and makes them machine readable. So relationships about people and relationships between other people, their ethnicities and their races and where they live and what their houses are like, and all these very kind of complex concepts can exist very easily in this format. And so I just created this linked data version of this asset that the U.S. Census provides in partnership with the Census, and it's now hosted on the internet, and anybody can use it. It's free to use. It's actually hosted on Amazon Web Service and their public data sets. And so I think the long-winded story, I know, I'm sorry, but my biggest achievement so far has been hosting that asset on the Semantic Web, on Amazon Web Service, and providing it for people so that they can put this very vital information into the hands of the public to help create a more informed public by using this purely machine readable format.
Jonathan, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like slow clapping you in my mind. That's what's happening. It's like, it's starting, you're in the middle of the wave and all that right now. That's fantastic and awesome. Thank you Firstly, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where just hearing about this experience, I didn't even know that the semantic web even existed, so just to
Yeah, I didn't either until I got this internship.
I was thinking to myself, I'm like, how did you learn all this stuff? Is this just like your night reading? You're like, let me read up more about the semantic web. So you picked up on it through the internship?
Well, yeah, I do now. I do read that. That's one of my alerts on Google News, I guess. But yeah, I picked it up through work. This was something that was presented to me, and this is one of the questions that you're asking was like that you had sent me before was to think about, and something that I had some thoughts about, which was like the best way to show competence in data science before getting a job. Definitely internships and fellowships, and this was a fellowship that basically landed right on my lap. It was presented to me by the director of business development at my company, and I didn't know anything about semantic web at all. So that's what I said. Like, that was one of my big challenges. One of my biggest roadblocks was just the sheer amount that I had to learn very quickly when I first started working there. And so, yeah, it's something that I do study now, and there are conferences for semantic web, and I don't know. There are a lot of people who think very highly of it, and there are a lot of people who think, it's overblown and it's never going to be a big thing. I think that's you could probably say that about anything, any technology at all. But I would say, and I'm not going to say that it's like going to solve everybody's problems, but linking data in this way, I do think is the future. I do think that the semantic web gives us a basis for publishing information in a very interesting way that then would power things like the next wave of artificial intelligence, because the way that you publish information and using this technology is that you give everything very defined structure. And what powers things like deep learning is something that you learn about when you study machine learning. And that's really, I think, one of the most highly sought after machine learning skills in a data scientist is somebody who knows deep learning very well. Well, deep learning, in order to use it, you need on the order of millions of structured and highly categorized assets that you can train your model on. And so there are things like ImageNet and other repositories, which are just crowdsourced repositories of all these images or data resources that take years and years to compile. But the way that they're being used by deep learning is really amazing. And what makes them so powerful, these data resources, is the structure, putting the structure onto the data so that the machine can use that structure to infer and to take new information and to make a wise decision. Well, the problem is, it takes a long time in order to create that. It takes a long time. Like, it's a concerted effort to create these massive repositories of structured information. Well, that's exactly what the semantic web is. That is what it is doing. That it's enabling people to publish information with a structure that will enable these machine learning algorithms to perform at scale. So yeah, that's why I think it's really exciting.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited about it. Like, I'm like, I think I need to go find out more about this. But like, I mean, there's so much that's going on here, Jonathan. I mean, like, hey, this is something that like a year ago you didn't even like really know about, like a year ago, like this wasn't really on your radar, correct? Like, you're saying just about like June 2016 is when you first started getting into this.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I had heard about big data, but I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah. And so just like to hear you talk about this to this extent that like I'm able to sit here and just like hear your voice and hear how you're talking about this here. Like, I'm like, oh, this is a really interesting problem. Yeah, semantic web. Like, why wouldn't I go? Like, I need to go learn out more about this. Like, it's just like you've given, I want to just say, like, I think it is really awesome. Like, just how much you've been able to get done. I know you said learning was something you focused on. It's clear that you've like been able to do a lot with that. And I think it's, one of my biggest signs around, like, if someone really know something is if they're able to teach it to someone else, And so I just want to just like take a step back and just say thank you for that, and kudos to you for like learning that to such an extent. Because it's like that was pretty powerful right there. And employees,
Thank
yeah,
you.
definitely. Employees, I encourage you, if this is something that even sounds remotely interesting, go explore it. Go find out more about this here. Jonathan, we're coming up on our time here. But there's something, if I didn't ask it. So like, firstly, can I just ask, I hate doing this, but do you have any flexibility with your time today?
No, yeah, I can stay.
Okay. And I only want to ask because the fellowship came up, and I feel if I didn't ask this here, like this could be a really amazing ways for employees to get that experience that, a lot of times they feel like they're lacking there. So like, given your experience with fellowships, if you had any suggestions or any thoughts on how someone could get involved or start to find a fellowship, and like, what that might entail, especially from the standpoint of, quite frankly, just basically it was a win all around, I think that is something that this is the first time I've heard of something like that. And I think it'd be really great to just explore that a little bit. Do you mind sharing your thoughts or how someone can leverage that to make their career transition?
Sure. So a lot of times they're described as fellowships. Sometimes they're even described as internships. And a lot of people shy away from internships especially when they've either graduated or they have work experience. And so I think that the first thing is, get that, like, just drop that. That's not going to serve you if you're interested in starting a new industry or a new job entirely. Like, I think you may have in a little bit of time where you're making an intern salary, where before you were making yada yada, coming into an intern salary for like 3 months with the potential of then getting a full-time gig. That's something that's worth it, in my opinion. So the first thing is kind of like that. A lot of people are just outright, no, I would never be an intern. I have, 5, 10 years, 15 years of experience. I would never do that. I don't think that is necessarily the best frame of mind. And so the first thing is that. The second thing is you got to search. You got to really dig, and you got to not only search online, but you've also got to talk to people. You've got to tell people that you're looking. You got to tell people frankly that you are looking, that you are trying to find a new position, and you just got to get your voice out there. You got to talk to everybody you can, and sooner or later, I think this one came to me through connection. I didn't find it online. I would say that the best opportunities are ones that you're going to search for and come through meeting as many people as you can and putting yourself out there. And just being open and honest that you're looking and that you're trying to get hired or you're trying to find a fellowship or an internship. In terms of fellowships specifically, I mean, those are available through organizations like the National Science Foundation, through the regional innovation hubs. The South Big Data Hub was the one that I got my fellowship through. I know that there are probably more and more and more. And it's just a matter of finding people who know that world and who know what opportunities are available, and then them saying, oh yeah, if you're looking, then you should look into this. So that's really how it happened with me. I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to just put yourself out there and to just be honest with people that you're trying to do this. Because I find that people like to help others if they can. I mean, by and large, I think that they do. So if people see that you're interested, see that you're energetic about it, and that you're talking to them about it, then I think that they're willing to help out. But you're not gonna get anywhere if you don't put yourself out there. If you don't look, that's a sure way for it not to work out.
No, I'm right there with you, Jonathan. It's funny because as you're saying this, I'm like, wow, that's exactly why we're talking right here, right? Because I went out and I was like, hey, I want to interview more people, and like, you stepped up and you're like, I don't know if what it was about it, but I think to myself, wow, we would have missed out on this amazing conversation. I still wouldn't have known anything about Semantic Web had I not gone out there and put that out there. And I think it's employees, like, regardless of if you're like the person that's like, I want to be completely like meet every new person. Like, I just put this out on social media. and let the people that I know and care about know what I'm trying to accomplish. So I say this just because quite frankly, I don't want the conversations that we would have in our own heads to keep us from doing what we know will actually get us the results, right? So if you build relationships one at a time, then have one-on conversation and make sure you're finding a way to authentically tell that to the people you talk to. If you're on social media a lot, put it out there. Make sure that that's a part of what it is, so that people know that they can actively be helping you for it. If you're social, go out to networking events and do something with it. But just because, regardless of how you build relationships, regardless of how you connect, it does not, at least from what I'm hearing here, it does, we can't rely on not doing that work, but doing it in a way that is authentic to us. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree totally with what you're saying. I think you cannot rely on it coming to you unless you're only what you put out can come back to you. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of a physical reaction there. There's an equal and opposite reaction to what you put out. And so if you go out there and you start, especially with meetups and just groups in your city, wherever you're from, there are tons of data science meetups. There are tons of tech meetups. There are meetups for people in tech who specialize in the business side. There are meetups for very niche subgenres of coding languages. There are meetups, the countless ones. So look up those, go to them, frequent them, talk to people, get to know people, understand what they're working on. Maybe you can help them. A lot of times, you actually know somebody because you just talked to 50 people the week before who know a thing or two. Maybe you can refer somebody else to them, and then that puts then you're doing a favor for somebody else, and then they feel like they want to return the favor. And so like what Nemo's saying, it's you can't expect something to just come to you without putting in that work proactively yourself.
Ooh, man, I'm getting goosebumps here. What's coming to mind is this idea of you going out, meeting all these, doing whatever you do, and you're helping someone else. And just even knowing that, by you doing it, there's someone else out there that'll be willing to do the same for you. I think, it just leads to a lot of powerful stuff. So Jonathan, really quickly, I just have just a few more questions. And you kind of hit on two of the questions that have come from Empjoyee. So what I'd like to do is, when I can get questions that come in from employees and listeners to make sure I'm answering what they care about. So if any of you out there have a question you want me to ask someone else in the future, just send a message over to nemo@empjoyment.com, or go more probably better just to go to the Empjoyment Community and just let us know, because I'll be fueling questions from there. There's one other question that's on technical programs such as SAS and Tableau. And I was wondering if you might be able to speak a little bit to it. I'll read you the question and maybe you can let me know your thoughts on it. So it says, SAS and Tableau are preferred for data science, for someone that's looking to transition into data science specifically, but the licenses for personal use are expensive. How can you prove that you can learn it quick enough to use it if the cost is prohibitive?
Okay. So you're going to get an opinionated answer here.
That's why we have you here. That's why we have you specifically. Only you can give this opinion. So hit us with it.
Okay. So I'll preface this by saying I have strong opinions, and I have strong opinions about both of these pieces of software and about data science overall. So that's my first thing. I'll start with SAS or SAS. So, and I'll be even more honest with you. I've never used SAS ever in my life. So there's that. I have not ever actually talked to anyone at a conference or at a meetup or on Slack channels who's doing data science anywhere who's told me they use SAS. I'm not saying that I've never met anybody who hasn't used it before. I've met a lot of people who've used it and who work at companies that do use it. But I've definitely not met recently people who still do. And it's because we're at this moment in data analytics where I like open source languages like R and Python and open source tools like Jupyter are having this, it's a transitionary early adopter to mainstream moment. And the users are different, I think, as we're moving from early adopters to mainstream. And there's this huge commercial adoption of Python specifically and of open source technologies in general, but Python specifically. And that's all happening right now. And I think I would think critically, of any company that wants to enforce that I use SAS at this point of SAS. So if I found out in the interview process that all they use is SAS, I would think critically of that company. I would say, I learned using open source technology because I was learning and I don't have an arm and a leg to pay for SAS. So would you be open to using open source technologies like Python with pandas and scikit-learn and using Jupyter notebooks and those kinds of things? Because those are really, that's what the community is using these days. And then I would see what they say. I think that platforms really need to create more value for their users than the value that they extract from the people who use them. And I think that's what R and Python do. I started with R and now I use more Python, but I love both. And I think that their communities are fantastic. Like the open source data analytics communities are places where people who create these things and the people who want to consume these innovations, they meet. And so they're platforms of community and of movement, and they're built on this belief in the empowerment of analytical thinkers. So the open source platforms really just like, they cease to be tools to me. They really become like substrates for innovation. And all of this movement is towards these tools, not only in just the broader community of hobbyists and people who do, but also people who do this for a living and now commercially as well. And so I would strongly suggest to just kind of stick to your guns, to learn the open source technologies, because that's where innovation is happening and where the community is, and to use that as your main environment. Now that's SAS. But that kind of leads me to Tableau. Some of my inherent thoughts about SAS apply to Tableau, but I think Tableau's feature set is significantly different. And I think it does have a place. I think it has a place because it's putting a lot of the data science lower in the stack, like lower in, you don't need a data scientist to use Tableau. It's essentially Excel with, and I think Excel is great. Like a lot of data scientists actually look down on Excel, but I think Excel is single-handedly responsible for greatly increasing data literacy around the world. And so I think Excel is a phenomenal piece of software and a phenomenal tool to use and fall back on when you want to. And so that said about Excel, I think Tableau is an extension in a certain way to the idea of Excel. It's like, it's becoming ubiquitous in a lot of commercial settings. A lot of people are using it, and it essentially operates in a lot of the same ways. It's essentially a spreadsheet with highly engaging visualization built on top of it. And it's enabling people who don't have a lot of experience at all to do some really cool stuff. And I guess you could say the same thing for SAS, but I think SAS is like, it's a little more technical. It requires a little bit more experience, and you're not as able to quickly get out of the gate and start creating really cool visualizations as you would with Tableau. I think that there's also a huge industry in preparing people to use SAS. Maybe not as much for Tableau, but I think that Tableau's like tutorial material is really good. I think that there's communities of users that are really excited about Tableau in ways that they're not excited about SAS. So I think that there are some differences between the two in my mind. And yeah, like I said, I think that Tableau's like feature set is just a little bit different. So I would say that Tableau has a place. I wouldn't say that SAS is going to have much of a place that much anymore, even though, I guess technically it's like kind of the standard. I don't see much energy behind it. I do see energy behind Tableau. I see a lot of excitement behind Tableau.
Oh, I am so happy I asked this question, Jonathan. I think this is like, I think it's really good insight there. And some of the things that I think I was hearing here is like, look, there are free technologies like Python are like that are out there. There's languages are out there, the Jupyter and those platforms. And I've had experience with Python a little bit. This like it's minimal. I tried to create a Slack bot. I got someone to help teach me that there.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's funny because
Nice.
like, as you're saying this, I was like, oh yeah, I just went and I downloaded Python, and within like 10 minutes, I was like actually coding something related to creating a Slack bot to help me with a problem I was trying to solve at work. And I was like, I didn't think of it as open source, but it was really just that simple. And like that's like why not get better at that along the way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome there.
Yeah.
So thank you for
even you're doing it, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I'm sitting here, and yeah, I'm very much like, if I have a problem, I'll put it out into the world, and if the world doesn't give me exactly what I'm looking for or doesn't get back to me on it, I just figure out what I need to do to move it forward. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm learning Python a little bit now to create this thing. I'm big on projects. I'm like, what do I want to accomplish? Okay, what do I need to do to be able to accomplish that? Then let me go ahead and do that. So it's not like I probably won't learn Python just for learning Python's sake. But if I do need to create a Slack bot, like I'm going to get it done one way or the other.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And that's a lot of that is a lot of what data science is, and a lot of what technology work is. You don't have to learn something for learning its sake. Like you're not going through, unless you do decide to go get like a master's degree or something like that, where you're kind of learning something from the ground up. A lot of learning is project based, it's project oriented, and it's very focused on what exactly is it that I need to accomplish. And then that way you're learning by doing. And I think that's just a more effective way to learn generally. Like I have a discrete problem with goal, and I have a goal in mind. I need to learn only as much about this technology as is necessary in order to achieve what I want to achieve. And as long as you get, like, if you can hack it together and get it working, like, that's fantastic. And then put it out into the world. And I guarantee you somebody's going to find it and going to say, oh, that's really cool. I can use that. And then they'll get back to you and they'll say, oh, you know what else is really cool? Like I saw 2 things about it that I thought that I could improve to make it go like 50 times faster. And be like, nice, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And now I'm learning from you, that's what open source is about. And so that's why I recommend kind of open source technologies in general.
Well, I appreciate that, because you were talking a little bit about like the tech mindset and like the tech processes. So just to like even just get a taste of that from you here and kind of how people can adopt and put that into life for them, I think is like spectacular. So we've gone over, and I just really appreciate you for being just awesome about like just being here and just sharing everything. Can we end this here with just like one last question, which is just around like, for someone that is looking to make a transition into tech this week, like what actions would you advise them to take this week, like in the next 7 days, to help them move forward on their journey?
And they're trying to get into tech or data science specifically?
I'll let you take it either way. Like if you have data science, let's go with it.
Kind of, maybe that's where I should focus, because I guess that's what I'll go with that one.
All right, cool.
So, and I guess it kind of depends on where people are coming from, what I would suggest. And I've seen people from like 3 or 4 different backgrounds who are getting into data science and doing it as a profession. And kind of the first category is former developers. The second category is like former mathematicians, statisticians, or people who are doing like hardcore science. The third category is former business people, former analysts, former business analysts, or things like that. And they want to start focusing, or students. That's, I guess, the fourth. And so what I would suggest for each of those groups would probably be different. And it's maybe a little bit telling that, like, of the 3 major groups, developers, math people, and analysts, like, what they typically need to beef up in order to get into data science is like the other 2 things. Like, data science is this combination of domain experience, which I think you gain a lot by being in in business, being in industry. It's a combination of that mixed with statistics, applied statistics, and computational mathematics, and a little bit of like data engineering and ETL, extract, transform, load, reading and writing data, massaging data, and putting things into practice, from like an architecture perspective when working with like a company, like actually putting a model into practice, requires like a little bit of, experience with like how do I actually write software and get it into production. So like what I would suggest for each of those three different groups is think of the other two groups and what they do really well. Try to find avenues for you to begin to learn those things. You don't need to become a master mathematician, but you do need to learn, or master statistician, but you do need to learn kind of fundamentals if you don't know those. And then if you do know fundamentals, you need to build on them. And so, especially for data science, there's a ton of material. Like just Google how to become a data scientist, and you're going to find thousands of results, quality results too. And so some of the things that I would direct people towards are the online courses. We're at a point where you can basically learn anything on the internet. Like you can, if you have a brain and motivation and an internet connection, you can like practically learn anything. And I think that's amazing. So, and that's definitely the case for data science. So there's things like edX.com, there's Coursera.com. What are the other big online course providers? edX, Coursera. Gosh, I'm forgetting them.
I know a lot of people go to like Udemy. Like, would that be a place for data science?
Yeah. Udemy. Yeah, that's another good one. And then there are online courses done by like Code Academy. That's one for like developers. And then Data Camp. That's one for, like more data scientists. And those are really cool because they're interactive. So, while you're learning, you're actually doing the coding yourself and seeing the responses in the terminal there. And those are really fun because they're so interactive. Another thing that you can do is just start to go through other people's projects. Start to go to data.world. Go to Kaggle.com. Kaggle likes to position themselves as like the home for data science. What they really excel at is hosting competitions, so machine learning competitions. And when people submit their project for these competitions, it could be anything from like they do competitions on all sorts of things. And a lot of companies sponsor them, so there's prize money involved a lot of times. And oftentimes you're focused on predicting some sort of value that the company is interested in. And so when people participate in those, their projects go live and they're made public. Just find them, pull them down, go through them, recreate them, try to apply them to your own situations, try to improve them. Those kinds of things. Go to data.world. There's tons. That's my company. Full disclosure, that's my company. I think everybody who's interested in data should be on data.world. That is something I would say, regardless of whether or not I were working for them. But definitely go to data.world. There's tens of thousands of open data sets to play with on data.world. Pull them down, look at them, open them up, make side projects, make pet projects. One of the things that's going to help you get a job in data science is a portfolio of pet projects where you're showing people what you've done in the past. The way to do that is by just getting your hands dirty. You actually have to get into it and play with it. You have to create something. And so those are all the kinds of things I would look to, the different skills that you have and the skills that you are going to need to gather. So data science is a combination of programming, of statistics, and domain experience. And so think about those three and which of those do you currently have and which are the ones do you need to amp up. Go to the online course providers, many of which are free. Go to MIT OpenCourseWare, go to edX, go to Udemy, go to Coursera, go to all those, go to DataCamp, and start learning. Go to data.world and start playing with open data sets there. Go to Kaggle and find previous projects that, you know, award-winning data scientists have used to have implemented their solution and recreate their solution. And finally, make a project, make a pet project, or make two, and put those in a portfolio that demonstrates what you can do. Because honestly, you don't need to go get a master's degree if you want to be a data scientist. It's more about showing what you can do. So really, the portfolio is where I think by doing that portfolio, you're going to learn so much, and it's going to prove to people what you can do in ways that a master's degree kind of can't, to be completely honest. When you come out of that, I suppose you'll have some projects under your belt, but if you have a portfolio where it's all wrapped up and it's easily findable online, like that's all you need.
Wow. Jonathan, I'm like, that's a true exhilaration right there. And like, that is like, employees, go back, listen, and do this. If there is one thing you can commit to yourself, if you're gonna, like, you know, there is no try, right? Like, do this. And and Jonathan, almost to this point here, like, it feels like at the end of the day, what you're driving at is get to the point where you can create a portfolio of 2 projects out there, right? And then so employees, if they, like it might have seemed like a whole lot of things that just came at you, but like maybe you flip it around. You say, at the end of the day, I need to create this portfolio. Jonathan has given me the 3 primary areas that I need to develop for myself if I'm going to do that: the programming, the stats, and the domain experience. So you know generally what kinds of things you're going to probably need to showcase in that portfolio. But I would probably just like go from there and see from data.world, Kaggle, what are people doing? All right, how do you create that portfolio? Oh, you need to learn something, as Jonathan said earlier, like learn what you need to do to move it to the next step of the project and then move forward. So then you can go to the online courses and build your skills in a strategic way, as opposed to spending hours, you know, starting on one and just not really knowing how it's all going to play out. Start with the end in mind and work your way backwards. Yeah,
that's a beautiful way of thinking about it, Nemo. That's a fantastic, like we were just saying, you know, you having a project in mind, like you were talking about your Python thing. You didn't go and decide to learn from the ground up Python programming from the very beginning to and learn the entire language. You decided that you were going to make a Slack bot, you know, and by doing your Slack bot, you learned a little bit of Python on the way. You learned just enough in order to get what you needed done. And I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. Like, just you know, start from the outcome. The outcome is, I want to have a portfolio of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects, whatever it is. And what do you need to do in order to get there is different than eating the whole elephant.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Whew. Jonathan, I'm like, I want to go on, but like, if we keep this up there, Empjoyees is just going to you're just going to have so much going on. So like, thank you so much. Let's just say that this has just been so much value. I really appreciate you just taking the time and taking the extra time to just sit down and share not just your experiences, but your opinions. Happy to have them, your talents and your journey with us. It has been an absolute pleasure. I think we've all gained quite a lot. And, you know, I think there's a lot that we can grab onto and immediately start putting to work to help us move forward in our lives. So with that there, I want to thank you for helping us experience joy today. And I want to wish you all the best. Take care, Jonathan.
Thanks, Nemo. Thank you so much for having me.
Seriously, y'all, I could not have been more pleased with the way this conversation went. And actually, to tell you the truth, I can be more pleased in the sense that what will bring me great joy right now is to see you all take action based on what Jonathan has shared today. Jonathan is big on committing to taking action and then doing what it takes to make that come to life. So let's honor that today with today's journey. So he opened our eyes to the world of fellowships and grants that could potentially cover the cost of an internship or provide an opportunity for you to build your portfolio for the job that you're looking for. So for today's Joyney, what we want is for you to be able to take some time to find and research a grant, a fellowship, an internship, something that could provide you or others with similar opportunities as Jonathan's fellowship gave him. The opportunity to work at an organization and build that portfolio. Now, it doesn't need to be in your area of interest or geographic area. And through this here on the Empjoyment Community, we'll not only create a unique repository of alternative solutions, but we'll also practice Jonathan's suggestion of seeking first to help and then receiving help in multiples when changing careers. I'm excited for you to just spend a few minutes seeing what's out there, thinking about this differently, approaching it differently, and taking it upon yourself to find something out there that may or may not benefit you directly. But hopefully when you make that contribution and you come over to the Empjoyment Community, you'll find not one, but many different options that could actually work in your favor. And we're going to build this here together because Jonathan has showed us a new path. So with that there, if you're ready to take action, come join us over in the Empjoyment Community, which you can easily get to by going to empjoyment.com/community, or just type in the word community to 33444, and you'll get a message with the next steps as to how to proceed from there. Not only are we talking about this, but we're continuing to talk about various things that can help you move forward in your journey, give you an access to things you can come and search for later on in the future, and also access to some of our previous guests and employees that are really interested in helping you move forward. I should also add that you'll have first-hand access to some of the Empjoyee only workshops that we'll be doing to help you take even more action. It's a shame, employees. I apologize. I know I could be nicer and just say, just go ahead and listen to this and you've done all the work, but knowledge alone is not enough. Do or do not. There is no try. In the words of Yoda, as brought back to us today by Jonathan. So let's do something today and come join us over in the Empjoyment Community. Ooh, I get excited thinking about the great things that you're going to accomplish and what we're going to be able to do together. Here is to experience and enjoy each and every day. Thank you so much and take care, employees.